Un caluroso saludo a todos los que comparten este espacio con nosotros. Welcome. My name is Carlos Aceves, and I've been asked here on behalf of El Paso Community College to conduct a rather special interview that I'm sure all of you will enjoy and quite informative. In 1976, while the United States was celebrating the bicentennial, people in Texas, specifically San Antonio and South Texas, were celebrating another milestone or another special event, historic event, and that was the first Chicano feature film ever made. It was called Please Don't Bury Me Alive, Por Favor No Me Entierren Vivo. And I must say that in South Texas, it actually sold more tickets than The Godfather. It was sold out. It was unexpected, and it was a great surprise. And we have here today the man who made that possible, Efrain Gutierrez. Bienvenido.
Bienvenido a ti, al público. Es un placer estar aquí.
Let's get right away into the film. This is the 40th anniversary of,
Yes.
Of that film. And at that time, there were no Chicanos, very few Chicanos in media, and let alone anybody producing Chicano films. What got you started on the idea?
Well, the thing is, just like you said, there were no Chicanos in, there were some actors, different people, but not, be a whole film or a movie about, our history or our people, meaning in Mexico, they had they were making movies. In Hollywood, they're making movies. But in Hollywood, the stereotypes, we were all second class. We were, like, I hate to say it, but we were the flunkies. We were the ones that shined the boots to John Wayne and things like that. They weren't positive roles. They were very stereotypical. We were always the bandido, at the end, you were going to get killed. And then in Mexico was doing, and I remind people, Mexico was also making movies about Chicanos, but not about us Chicanos. They were using Chicanos. We were like a joke for them.
I live on the west side of San Antonio. All my life, even when I was a little kid, I've been thinking about Chicanos. I've been wondering what would happen to all of us. It's a strange thing, living in a world that makes you different from the rest of the people. Yeah, I know. Some of us are like you. I want to be like you, but only to a point. You see, I'm old enough now to know that what I really want is some way of bringing together both my worlds. There's a lot to be said for living in a nice tract house, or for pulling out of the barrio and heading for the suburb. The thing is, I don't want that. That may be hard for some of you to believe, but I really like being Chicano. But it's only been in the last few years that so many of us have had the guts to own up to the fact that we are Chicanos, and we're gonna stay that way. Now, how the hell am I going to be Chicano and compete in an angry world with you Puchi people? Well, that's part of a problem. That's part of a big problem. Who the hell said we had to be the same? That is ridiculous. There must be room in this country for me to be Chicano in dignity. Americano in my own way. We are the busboys of your meals, yet we cannot see the menu. We're the builders of your cities, yet we cannot consult with the architect. Countless streets are named after me, yet no one knows my name.
We never thought we were going to be the movie makers. I never thought, I'm going to produce or we're going to produce the first Chicano movie. No, I was looking for somebody, to do it and to be participating.
Your partner was Sabino
Garza. He was from Eagle Pass and he passed away about 4 years ago.
Now, you're obviously frustrated because the reality of Mexican Americans was not being portrayed. Having seen the film back then and having seen it on its 40th anniversary, now, there was many realities that you could have portrayed about Chicanos.
Mm-hmm.
You chose to portray a very stark and struggling reality. This is low-income Mexican Americans in the barrio doing sometimes not so good things, and very angry. What made you choose that particular reality of Chicano life?
Around that particular time, my best friend at the time, Alex Ayala, went to prison because of drugs. And I was doing a play at the Little Theater in San Antonio, but I had gone during the day when he was being sentenced. And when I saw the injustices, meaning, I saw white people that were for kind of the same, cases against, like my friend had, were getting off with probation or, minor time. But when it came to my friend, he got 10 years, the maximum. And, to me, I had been there seeing all this, and that's when it really hit me, like, wait a minute, that's not right. And of course, it was done back then by John Wood, we used to Maximum John, who was a federal judge that giving the maximum to all the minorities. But it impacted me quite a bit that night when I was doing the play in the Little Theater. I had to literally stop almost halfway because my mind wasn't in it. My mind was still in what happened in the courthouse, in the federal courthouse. So, I apologize for my lack of concentration in what we were doing. And I kind of, told him a little bit of what happened. And there happened to be a reporter, a white reporter, I think it was Ron White even, his name, who had been doing reports, little stories about us at that time in the San Antonio Express News. So, what, Efrain, that sounds like a good story. Why don't you, do a play or something about it? So that's when Sabino said, Efrain, why don't we put that into the story? So to me, I saw no problem with it because, like I say, we picked it because it was something that affected me and affected us immediately, that we saw it, and we had been seeing all these kind of problems. So what happened was that we got into it, and then we started, as we kind of researched or ran into other things, we didn't even think about doing a movie about a doctor or a lawyer, because Sabino was brought up like in Navarro and Eagle Pass, the same way I was in San Antonio. And we didn't grow up with role models that were doctors or lawyers. So we really have no role models, important big role models that we could have done a story about. Because there are, Henry B. Gonzalez. There's a lot of people that were already there and had done great things for the movimiento and everything. But ourselves, we had been in the barrio. We really didn't know any of these people, and we didn't have stories. So we decided to portray how life was for us at that particular time, and what were the things that were affecting us, like having to do, like I said, with the judicial system, the education, the war in Vietnam. So we try to, how all this impacted, because see, people think that this movie, Please Don't Bury Me Alive, is a very positive movie. Like at the end, we're going to have like a happy ending. Everything. He's going to overcome everything, and everything's going to be right. And, well, sadly, those are not our stories. Most of our stories, sad, end up sad. And a lot of people maybe sometimes don't want to hear it. Don't want to. They're tired. Hey, I don't want to hear another sad story. So I'm like,
hey, Alejandro has a good chance, man. Gabacho del Gap tried ahorita was charged with the same thing Alejandro got tried for. And he only got a suspended sentence for 3 years.
Oh, entonces Alex has a chance.
Está igualito.
Ay, mamá.
Ay, gracias a
Alex
Dios.
is gonna go free.
No, pero no es igual, porque yo conozco a la mamá de ese gabacho. She's my boss. Ella pagó mucho dinero porque saliera libre.
Cuando pienso en mi dolor, me siento solo. Vino el viento y
Sorry, sir, you can't come in without a coat and tie.
But his son is being tried.
Sorry, ma'am, but that's the law.
No, yo me espero acá afuera.
hubo guerra y se me fue uno de ellos.
Please rise.
Fue valiente y no volvió, me lo mataron.
The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court is now in session. The Honorable John A. Spears presiding. Would the defendant, Alejandro Hernandez, and counsel please approach the bench?
Llevan preso y no lo puedo ayudar. Señor, que estás en el cielo.
Alejandro Hernandez, you have been accused of the following charges. 1, selling narcotics.
Del alma de mi hijo. Y el otro, dale tu bendición.
Perdona, amigo, por no poderte ayudar.
Do you have anything to say for yourself?
No, sir.
The accused has been found guilty of the following charges. 1, selling narcotics. 2, resisting arrest. 3, using abusive language when addressing an officer of the law. 4, carrying a concealed weapon. And 5, obstruction of justice. He is therefore sentenced to 10 years in the federal penitentiary. The case read.
Adiós templos de justicia, donde mandan a matar el prójimo que juzgaste, con Dios lo va.
So you're inspired by the injustice that you perceived occurred to your friend,
Yes.
and yet you don't begin the film with that. You begin in something that I thought was very peculiar and powerful. You begin it with a funeral.
Edgewood used to be and still is the poorest independent school district in the United States. But at the same time, Edgewood, during the Vietnam era, you know, we contributed more soldiers that didn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
We're given, you know, between Los Angeles, Los Angeles, a bigger school per campus, but per student body, I think we had 52 students that didn't come back. Either they were students and dropped out, or so. At the time when we were in high school, 65, 66, when you know things were starting to go in Vietnam, we were going almost to a funeral, you know, almost every month. And like I said, in one of those scenes, you know, I remember, you know, the mother, when they gave her the medals, you know, her reaction was, "I don't want your damn medals. I want my son." And the thing that affected me is that because of tradition, because of our cultura, and because of our history in fighting in every war, and you know, we're Chicanos, we're the ones, you know, we have this great pride in that, you know, like we have the most Medal of Honors of any other ethnic group. We, you know, contributed more soldiers to Vietnam, you know, ethnic-wise than any other minority. And so, you know, this was such a pride in that. And it was hard for people to say no. And I take it because one of my cousins that was hurt in Vietnam, he didn't want to go to Vietnam. When he dropped out, he got drafted in '66. And so we were getting together, you know, friends and cousins, you know, like we would say, hey, go to Canada, you know, because he didn't want to go. Like, he didn't know anything. He's a young kid, you know, he didn't understand. He wanted to get married with his girlfriend and everything. And then now here you're being drafted and you're going to go to a war that you don't even understand. You don't even know. At that time, we were just starting to read about it a little bit more. So, you know, but we were trying to convince him to go to Canada as to his father and his uncle, my older cousins. How can you even think about it? Because they had been in Second World War. And, you know, our history, you know, I have a lot of, you know, I have a relative that was a prisoner of war in Korea, you know, relatives that got wounded in the Second World War. But then, you know, when we saw that, you know, I said, this is something that is affecting, you know, and we are not for it, you know, because Sabino Garza, I'm not a Vietnam veteran, I'm not a veterano, but Sabino Garza did 2 tours in Vietnam, my partner, and he was an infantry soldier, and he saw this, and he was, you know, like, you know, he said, no, hombre, but he's the one that said, no, hombre, you know, he spoke it. That part comes more from Sabino's point of view, on what I had seen and what he confirmed. So we thought that it was very important to get that, you know, because the mother feels very different than the father, you know, and to the mother, you know, like, what mother wants to see a son go to war or especially come back in a coffin?
Adiós acompañamiento, que voy para el campo santo. Y toditos mis parientes gimiendo en amargo llanto. Ya me separo de todo y del mundo en general, hasta vernos en la gloria en el juicio universal. Adiós acompañamiento, pues ya todo está cumplido. Pónganme en la sepultura, en la tierra del olvido. Adiós por última vez, que me ven sobre la tierra. Ya me echan en el sepulcro, que es mi casa verdadera. Adiós acompañamiento.
La Candy no vino. No, I think he broke up with her before he left for Vietnam. Pues dicen que la dejó pregnant. Candy no cree, no tiene más respeto.
Que Cristo que te llamó te reciba y que el coro de los ángeles te introduzca en el cielo. Dale, Señor, el descanso eterno y brille para él la luz eterna. Padre clementísimo, te recomendamos el alma de nuestro hermano Ricardo, apoyados en la certeza de que resucitará en el último día con Cristo y con todos los que han muerto con Cristo. Señor Dios omnipotente y eterno, tú que tienes señorío sobre los vivos y los muertos, que estás dispuesto a compadecerte de todos y que sabes quiénes serán tuyos en el futuro por la fe y por las obras, te rogamos insistentemente por los que viven en carne mortal en este mundo y por aquellos que ya, liberados del cuerpo, pasaron al mundo futuro. Que la intercesión de todos tus santos, por tu amor paternal y por tu compasión, dales el perdón de todos sus pecados por Cristo nuestro Señor. Que su alma y el alma de todos los fieles difuntos, por la misericordia de Dios, descansen en paz.
aquí tiene medio ojo. Yo ando contigo. Don't worry, all the time I'm gonna be with you.
That Ricardo Hernandez has been awarded the Silver Star for his bravery in the face of the enemy. Ms. Hernandez, will you please accept these medals in the name of your son, Ricardo Hernandez?
I don't want no medal. I want my son. Mi hijo es el que quiero. ¿Y por cuánto me van a dar? Let's make a deal right now. Nomás los quieren para sus cochinas guerras de Vietnam.
How did you choose actors, cameras, all the equipment, everything that you need, all the structure that you need to put together a film?
The thing is
money, most of all.
Well, of course you needed money, and the first thing that I had like $4,000 that I had saved up, that I had money when the idea that we were going to make a movie, but we didn't see ourselves being the production of it. We thought that, and that's how I went to Trinity University. I went to Trinity University, and I had a meeting with Bill Hayes, who was the director of the film school at Trinity. And back then, the only two film schools that were around was Trinity and UT Austin, that had the film schools at that time. And Trinity was at that time was even recognized higher than UT. So, but it was a very wealthy university. It's one of the top 20 most prominent wealthy universities in the United States. The students over there, like los hijos de H.E.B., the Butts, el hijo de William Session, the director of FBI. So these were all young students that were attending. Jack Landon, my friend, that helped me out. These were all children of very prominent people. But Bill Hayes, when I went to ask him, I said, how much would it cost for the film students at Trinity University to make a movie for us? The technical part, because we didn't know anything about the technical part. So he said, well, it's $24,000. I said, oh, Jesus, I got $4,000. Oh, wow. Anyway, I said, well, how does it work? He said, well, look, you give us $8,000, and then we film the movie. When we finish the movie, you give us another $8,000, and then when we present the release print that we're going to give you, that's the final $8,000. So it's a total of $24,000, and we'll provide everything. You just give us a script, and however you're going to direct it, we'll do everything for you, the filming, the editing. So of course, we didn't have. So I remember that I left, and then Mr. Hayes took an interest in me, and he told me, Efrain, you want to make a movie? Because I said, well, I don't have that kind of money. He says, you really want to make it? And I was leaving, and I remember I was going to open the door to get out of his office. And he called me back, said, Efrain, you're really serious about making a movie? I said, yes, sir. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't know how, but we're going to make it. And he said, you know what? Come here. He said, let me introduce you to one of our students who's a student instructor here, who was Jack Landman. And so Jack Landman and I, right away, we clicked. So he was teaching, so I took a couple of his classes, but I didn't understand what they were talking about. I'd never been in film, so I did a couple of classes, and I realized that, I could stay a whole year. And so when they had offered me a scholarship to go 4 years at Trinity University, I could get you a scholarship through the television film production, department. But I told Mr. Hayes, that would take like 4 or 5 years by the time I graduate. I want to make a movie now. I don't want to do it, when I graduate or during. So anyway, Jack Landman came in, and then Mr. Hayes opened literally the university to me. I was not a student, but he told me, Efrain, you work with Jack Landman, and then we'll let you take cameras out, a 60 millimeter camera. That's what I started with there at Trinity. They let me use the 60 millimeter camera, and they even let me I edited my first film, most of it there at Trinity University. But they allowed me with the students that as long as I had one of the students with me, I could use the equipment. But I had to have a student. So I laugh. I had all these rich kids that were helping me out. Mostly Anglo kids, that were kind of hanging around because they were film students. So the idea of working with, making an action movie, I guess, was exciting to them. And they didn't care so much about what I was doing, but they were interested in the production.
Sunday. May I join you?
Yeah, sure.
What's the matter? Don't you like this party?
It's okay, I guess. It's just that I don't know anybody here.
Well, now you know me. What's your name?
Alex?
Alex, how about a drink?
No, not right now, thank you.
You can't stand here all night. Come on, let's dance.
What a damn wetback. What the hell do you think he's doing?
Looks like he's doing all right to me.
Aren't you glad you came to this party?
I'm gonna set that son straight.
No, wait a minute. No.
Come on, man. Hey, listen, you gotta dig that white stuff, don't you?
Don't listen to him. He's nothing but a troublemaker.
Hey, man, I'm talking to you. Hey, Razor.
Don't
How's it feel to be making out with that white stuff? A superior race.
Why don't you ask her?
You think you're kind of funny, don't you?
Oh, was that funny? Well, maybe this won't be too damn funny.
Goddamn Mexican, you're dead now.
Son mucho, vámonos, Beto. Vamos para allá, ¿Qué pasó? Un pinche gringo mero en los 5.
Es que they had invited us to this party, nomás que luego le hicieron pedo al jato por los... There was too many of them for us to handle.
Vamos a ver si arreglamos este jale. Vamos a ver qué tan gallitos se creen. Están los pinches va. Y ya sabes, te van a decir, están en la madre. No es que, pues, tú vete con ellos, Juan, tú vete conmigo.
Oye, Nick, trae pasta. Igual que arriba. ¿Cómo están los gringos?
Look out, here come them damn wetbacks again. Hey, now wait, man. Now what? We don't want more trouble. Let's just forget about the whole thing.
¿Qué dice? Los vatos no quieren pedo.
¿Cómo en la madre? Cálmate, si se lo va a tocar.
Actual money that came out of my pocket from the time we started to the time we end, just to pay for film, to pay, we bought a camera, things like that. It was less than $30,000, actually, the movie. And if you put everything into the total cost, we'd probably run into about $60,000 total for the whole thing.
And I understand it was very well received.
Oh, yes. I mean, when we showed the movie, we didn't know what we had, when we finished the movie, now, and that's what I tell people, now, how are we going to distribute it? How are we going to get it out there? And that's the other, headache that we had. So at first I went to the Mexican theaters, and Eloy Centeno, who had the Mexican theaters, I told him, Eloy, Mr. Centeno, give me 10%, and you can show the movie. And, he'd even ask about the movie, who are your actors? Do you have Vicente Fernandez at the time, Lucha Villa, kind of. Well, it's me and my girlfriend and my friends, and we weren't professional actors, because we couldn't, one, we didn't know any major professional actors, and then the other one, we couldn't afford to pay anybody. So, we just picked the people. We did have some auditions, and like the father in the movie, is a little more professional because he had done some parts in films and stuff. But when we finished, and then I took it to the American theater, and they also kind of laughed at me. Mr. Santicos, John Santicos, who just passed away recently, he owned 90% of the screens, theaters and stuff in San Antonio. So, we're okay, now we got a problem, And then Jack Landman at Trinity told me, Efrain, you know, have you ever thought about four-walling? I didn't know what four-walling was, but he told me basically, you rent a theater, and then, you know, you pay $3,000 whatever for the week, and whatever comes in, so yours. Oh, okay. So then I went to John Santico and said, well, since you won't go 50-50 or work with me on a percentage, I would rent one of your theaters. So I agreed on a contract, a sliding scale. He said, well, do you want it for 1 week? I said, well, if I take it for the second week, well, then it drops, you know, like I think it was $4,000 for the first week, $3,000, and then $2,000, you know, per week for the theater. So I said, okay, I take the sliding scale for 3 weeks, see what happens. So he, fine. Wow, when that movie, you know, I can't go to it, but when it showed, I mean, we broke a record. You know, it's the first day that I went to see on a Friday, you know, the people, they made me go see what was going on because I didn't want to see until, I didn't want to go near the movie until it was over because I had invested, I mean, I had lied, let's say, to people. I got credit at the radio station. I got credit at the TV station. I got credit with Santico. I gave him a hot check. He later told me he knew that I'd given him a hot check. You know, I owed like over $12,000, and the movie hadn't even come out. I didn't even know if I was going to make $12,000 on the movie. So when, you know, I was thinking I was going to have to go turning myself in after when nobody would show up to see the movie. But when they made me go see it on a Friday at around 6 o'clock, when I showed up, they said, no, the problem we call you, you know, we just wanted you to come see the manager of the theater. And you know, I remember when I was walking in, you know, I was todo aguitado and thinking, you know, I'm going to be in trouble, I'm going to be in trouble. But when I got there and then I saw a line around the theater, it was a 4-screen theater, and they were showing, you know, all the President's Man and Superman, you know, they were showing, you know, the movies at the time. So I thought those are where the people are going to, these movies. But when I started walking, the parking lot was full, so I started walking from a distance. And then when I got close, I started seeing, wow, son puros morenos, puros chicanos, you know, like, wow, could it be? So I started running, and then when I got there, and I see that they're all in, please don't bury me alive. Wow. So when I told the manager what happened, I said, no, Efrain, I wanted to show you this. This is your opening. Those people are for the 6 o'clock showing. I want you to show you, this is the 4 o'clock showing. You have a full house. And you know, so he said, you have a hit on your hand.
This was in San Antonio.
This was in San Antonio.
Did that get replicated further down in
yes,
Texas?
Yes, it did. Again, after we showed it, you know, Santico, he of course wanted to go in a percentage. I said, no, we're going to go on the sliding scale. So we did over, I think, 45,000 in the first 3 weeks. And then we didn't go into partnership, and then we had all the theaters. We went to drive-ins and other theaters downtown, the Texas Theater downtown. So when this happened, you know, it created a buzz in the newspapers and what have you. So that's when other theater owners, when people started coming from other areas, you know, they started contacting that they wanted the movie in their, you know, in their theaters. And that's how I was able to start, you know, going Laredo, where I broke records that'll never be broken in Laredo. Here in El Paso, when Mr. Godley brought me down to the tower, at the time we broke records, you know, attendance records here at the tower in downtown, in Brownsville, but all where there was a lot of Chicanos.
Papa, you look tired. Why don't you go home?
¿Qué haces aquí, mijo?
Vine a hablar con usted. Vámonos para la casa.
Pero no puedo nomás irme porque sí.
¿Y por qué no? Why not?
Porque me corren del trabajo.
You're worried about your job, and I'm worried about your health. The doctor told you not to work. Vámonos para la casa.
¿Pero qué no comprendes, hijo? Si yo ya estoy viejo. Si me corren de ese trabajo, tengo que cuidarlo. Ya no puedo encontrar otro.
El que no comprende es usted, papá. Usted está como todo lo demás de nuestra gente. Ustedes son los que trabajan hasta que se caen muertos. Y el único que hace dinero es el gringo. Can't you see that? Cuando usted se muera, ni se van a acordar de usted. They'll just replace you with another brown face to do their dirty work while they sit on their ass. No, papá. Their day is coming. And it's coming sooner than they think.
No, Riquito. No tan fuerte, te pueden oír.
Pues que me oigan. Let them hear me.
Mira, hijo, I'll see you at supper. Y cálmala ya, ¿eh? Yo ya estoy viejo. I know that I'm old and I'm not as arrogant as you are. But our salvation is young people like yourself. You know, I'm very proud of you because you very strongly believe in nuestra raza. Y anda con cuidado, ya ves lo que pasa otra vez. Cuídate mucho.
From your success, obviously you didn't stop at this film. Did that open the door for other projects that you did?
Well, it did, and again, I didn't take advantage of the opportunities that came about because, again, I tell people, I wasn't trained. We weren't business people. Sabino was closer to a college graduate than I had already dropped out. So we didn't understand the business sense. We didn't have mentors to tell us, where to go, what to do. So when those opportunities did come up, but at the same time, they closed on me pretty fast because when I sold the rights to Please Don't Bury Me Alive to a company in Mexico, they promised they were going to show it in Mexico, they were going to show it in Cuba, España, wherever, Raza. And when they got the movie, I didn't understand, but they shelved it. And we were making good money, ourselves, but when I signed the rights over to them, then they took away the prints, they took away, the money, and then they never showed it. And they had promised me that they were going to invest another $100,000, but they asked me to do a love story kind of movie. So right away we dropped it. They said, no, we were tired, we were exhausted because we had gone all over ourselves. So in a way, we thought, well, this is awesome. They're going to take the movie, they're going to make money, and now we got a chance to now start to make a movie with more money. So we jumped into Amor Chicano with that promise. But they never gave us the money, and here we're halfway to the production, and we're also now broke on the other movie, and there's no money coming in. So we did Amor Chicano, we finished it off with, again, struggling, and we had less money than the first one. But we did the Amor Chicano, but we had a hard problem blowing it up to 35. It was never blown up to 35. But Amor Chicano got success in certain areas, but we showed it in 16 millimeter, which a lot of theaters, you used to get upset. We showed up with a big projector because they say, hey, where's the 35 millimeter? Because I had gotten some advance from the theaters based on the record of the first one, like 4,000, 5,000 here, and I was supposed to give him a film. So the only thing I got away was in the contract, it said that I was going to turn in a film. So I would tell him, it doesn't say that it has to be 35, because to be able to blow it up to 35 back then was $25,000.
Fast forward to today. This is the 40th anniversary of Please Don't Bury Me Alive. And you're obviously taking another tour, another interest in this, your first film. What is the reason, besides just going down memory lane, for taking this film around and showing it again to this generation?
Well, to me, there's a lot of things that haven't changed, and a lot of things that have changed a lot. I think we were more, united in during the Chicano movement, kind of, that we're trying to get into politica and trying to change, the sistema un poquito to be more favorable to Chicanos. But when all that happened, and I stayed out for different reasons, and but my film has been shown in film festivals and stuff like that, and surprisingly enough, when young people hear about it, you get this reaction, this response again, that, it makes it, it opens up, a little bit of history, I think, to them to be able to understand. And maybe when they see the film, like a lot of young people at first don't like it. They say, well, like, yeah, of course, it's a guy that goes to prison, and, but then when they see, like we touch on the machismo, we touch on Vietnam, all these things that we touched on, that were happening, and then when they start understanding, a little bit of our history, what was going on, not that we are very happy with what was going on, but we were able to capture some of that, and I think that young people are, are receptive to something like that. And so now going back, mostly through universities, colegios, there are a lot of filmmakers, and to me, I think that if we can, get them interested back into some of our, of our history, and that this, they'll be able to do, of course, mucho más mejor than we did.
You mentioned some of the issues, one of them being machismo, which is something in Mexican culture that represses women, and of course society is guilty of that as well. How has the role of Chicanas changed in these efforts to make new films, to portray a new reality?
It's changed tremendously. It's gone from from night to day on the female point of view. The reason I'm saying that, because of our cultura, because of our tradiciones, or whatever you want to call it, that man has, in our cultura, let's say in Chicano and the Mexicano, the man is the one that can, basically does whatever he wants to, and the woman stays. I grew up with my family where, like, las mujeres were not going to go to school. My sister never, went beyond high school because, she was expected to get married and, not really, be the breadwinner. So traditionally, the man was a breadwinner, and so a lot of the women, I'm not saying that they didn't do something, but they were taking a back seat to everything that we did. I relate that to the Chicano movement with the Raza Unida, that, like, it was all male, the leaders, the spokesmen of the men, and the women were the ones that did, when we were gathering, they did the cooking, they were in the kitchen, but they were never in the forefront. And I think that that's one of the main reasons that the Raza Unida, and,
talking about La Raza Unida political party,
kind of, didn't progress. I think that if we would have had women to be able to be along with men and take those positions and roles that only certain men took, and only certain men, went around, pushing the Raza Unida party, and the women were always behind. Oh no, now, everywhere, like I said, flip from night to day, because now, everywhere, it's awesome, the women, I see more women involved, now than men are. And I see more female, filmmakers, that are doing mucho más trabajo than, some of our male part. So no, I think that this is something that was needed, and it is something that has happened, and I think it was way overdue.
That's it, baby. We'll pick up where we left off tomorrow.
But it's early.
There's this party I have to go to.
Why don't you take me with you?
It's not that kind of a party. Puros vatos locos, and that's no place for the girl I'm going to marry, right?
Okay, if you say so.
Come on, let's go.
Hey, this really is a far-out party.
Yeah, man, we're in heaven, and this is my angel.
Hey, one. That was a pretty good rip-off we made last week, huh?
It was all right.
Hey, Alex, I got to talk to you.
What about?
I got a proposition for you. If you accept, you're going to make a lot of money.
Don't get me busy. What is it?
I need to get a hold of a half a pound of white gold.
Hey, man, I don't mess around with that shit.
Wait a minute. I got 20 to 1,000. It's all yours. All you got to do is just get me the stuff. Hell, I don't know where to start looking. I can't get it myself. So you're it, man. Look, I'll get the 20 grand, and you get the stuff. How about it? Is it a deal?
No, man, forget it.
Come on, Alex, man. You're the only one for the job.
You're asking me to cut my throat, man. So forget it. You white people are really something. Just because you see us blow our mind with all kind of shit, you automatically think we like it. Hell, man. The only reason we take the shit is because that's the only way we can exist in this bullshit you call America. You white foreigners came to our land, and you try to change our language, our name, our tradition, even our religion. Everything has to be white. You try to change us because you don't understand us. Hell, man, we're not like the blacks. We don't want equality. If we ever became like you, we'd end up in the gutter. But it's kind of hard to admit to this damn cop-out. But this is the only way we can take it, man. Or else we'll go insane.
Oh, come on, Alex. Shit.
No, man. Don't shit, man. You know, the pigs will leave us alone as long as we do the shit ourselves. But as soon as we start selling it to funky whites that can't handle the shit, then they come down our ass. No, man, I'm just beginning to like you. And that's hard, because I don't trust white people. But I guess we have to make a better world somehow. So forget it, man. No, I'm not mad. Let's go to your apartment. Okay.
The Oscars are coming up, and there's a call to boycott because there's a lack of
diversity,
diversity, lack of black and brown faces in the awards. Do you support do you support the boycott, and do you offer any suggestions as to where do we go to change that's still white reality?
Well, the thing is, I've never been much into the Oscars. I don't really pay attention to the Oscars. I don't, because of that reason. But that has been from day one. It's not something new that because we have never had really Chicanos out there. We've boycotted certain areas. We've demanded certain things. And some of the reasons some people have been successful was because of some of the things that happened before. I give an example. When we were complaining a lot back in the 70s, 80s about the lack of Latinos. We had Image involving the Mexican American in gainful endeavors in the 60s, trying to change the image of the Mexicano, Chicano, and trying to do, and they were the ones that got away with got rid of the bandido. Remember the Frito Bandido, Image was one of the main. And then we even did a movie, not a movie about Bandido, but the guy that started, ended up going to Hollywood and working in productions up there. But the diversity that is going on, that is the reason that we did what we did, that we started creating our own, or tried to create our own, film industry.
And I imagine that's the reason why you're celebrating the 40th anniversary in the manner that you're doing now.
Yes.
For exposure.
Because, and I think, of course, I will never be in the Academy Awards or anything like that, rightfully so. I'm not, a film or an actor or whatever. But I think that, it would open up something great, if they would allow not the Hollywood story, but our story, from our point of view. And I think that, it would make a big impact. But of course, as long as, the Hollywood especially, the powers, are not going to allow that.
Brethren, every day we are confronted with another test. Life is God's testing ground. We are His children. Those who follow the steps laid out in God's commandments will truly inherit His kingdom. As we find ourselves in the midst of corruption and trying times, we must become inspired by God's word. We must find it in our souls, in our hearts, to restrain ourselves and to accept the conditions of our society, and to pray to God that they get better. To involve ourselves in violent tactics against our government is sinful and of no merit in the eyes of God. We must pray to God so that He can inspire our leaders to guide us into better times. And for God's presence, we must be thankful.
¿Para qué lo pagabas?
Ese padre no sabe lo que dice. He's too damn old. He's still living in the past.
Pues él ha de saber lo que dice. Estudió para ser padre.
Y con tanta educación todavía cree que Dios es la solución para todo.
Pues lo es. Si le restaras de vez en cuando.
No, ¿para qué? God is not responsible for the way things are. It is man. Es el hombre. Es el gringo. He's the one that's responsible. We got to do something about it. ¿A qué le echamos la culpa de todo a Dios? No tengo hambre. Ya me voy.
Déjame, ven para echarte la bendición. La juventud de hoy no tiene respeto para la religión.
Pues puede que Alejandro tenga razón.
You have a new project, and part of what you're doing now is trying to create a documentary about an important part of history that's also been neglected.
I am trying to do a documentary about, I call it Al Norte. And what Al Norte means is, that the people that migrated I'm talking about Chicanos that migrated up north because they couldn't find opportunities, especially in South Texas, in job opportunities, in schooling, in education. And I'm covering the 40s, which is when I was a migrant myself, from the 40s to the 60s. So I'm covering all the way to the 70s because a lot of families, and that was more or less, in the 70s, technology, changed everything. There's no need for that many migrant workers anymore. But, they need now to work in, the cherry pickers with the machines and what have you. But before, we had to do everything by hand. And people forget that, especially in San Antonio and the towns in South Texas, when it came around April, May, half of the population, Tejano population that were living, Chicanos that were living in these barrios, would leave to go al norte to work either. Like I said, we went to Washington for the apples, Idaho for the potatoes. You pick tomatoes in Indiana, Ohio, cherries, apples also in Traverse City. And you got all kinds of fruits and vegetables. So we followed the crops. That's what migrants did, what we call migrants, migrantes. We migrated from Texas to go al norte. And the reason we were doing it, again, like I said, families in the summer and stuff, there was no way that you were going to make a living if you stayed in Texas with a family. In order to feed the families, you had to go. So that hurt a lot in the education opportunities for the people, because we would leave like late April, early May, and come back after Las Piscas, picking cotton in Lubbock, Snyder, Littlefield, whatever areas out there. But we would come back like close to Christmas, go back to San Antonio, and when school started in January, that's when we enrolled back in school.
And that's a reality that the modern generation is really unaware of.
Yes, and that's what I tried to tell them. I never understood it at the time, but now I realize that we were the ones that were feeding America. Like I tell them, if it wasn't for the migrants, you wouldn't be able to have all those fruits and vegetables that you're eating, because back then we literally picked it by hand, and we're still doing a lot of that. And so I'm trying to get in contact, and if anybody knows any migrants that have a story, especially that went from Texas to al norte, that have stories or pictures or films. Because see, a lot of it, we didn't keep those pictures. I have a few, and we don't have, I wish that there was some footage, of migrants from the 60s, 40s, even if there was still, 8mm, whatever was available in the 50s. I would like to get to interview some of these people, because I'm trying to show, the diferencia también with the migrants that stayed up there, that went from Texas and stayed in Michigan, Indiana, whatever, and the opportunity that they got up there and the education that they got and the positions they ended up with are way stronger than the ones that came back, like my family. I use my family and I've apologized to my family. I'm not trying to embarrass my family, but I'm saying, like families that went up there, their kids got to college, they became doctors, professors, lawyers, whatever. And the ones that came back, most of them were dropouts from school or didn't ever get to go to college. But there was a lot of success stories. They have their business, they have their body shops, they have their, the restaurants, whatever, without, dropping out of junior high or something like that. I tell this to people, we're 7 of us, and I'm the only one in my family that graduated, got a college education. But the one that became a millionaire is one of my brothers, and he dropped out when he was in the 7th grade. And yet, financially, he's the only millionaire in my family that we would consider. And so when I compare, and I'm trying to figure out, and talking to other professors and other people, we've come, the racismo that was in Texas was not the same up north. Up north, we didn't see this racism that you had, openly in Texas. Once you left your barrio, most people stayed in the barrio because, you never went to the north side, because the gringos didn't want you in the north side. And then you still ran into signs all the way to the 60s, no Mexicans or dogs allowed. When we traveled from Texas to go to Indiana to go work, you have to drive all the way through East Texas, and then before you get to Arkansas. So when we would leave Austin, which was the last gathering point for all the caravana, and then we would go across, and heaven forbid, we would load up with extra gasoline, and we were trying to get everything ready because you didn't want to get stopped for any reason between Austin all the way to, let's say, Arkansas, because if you did, they were not going to serve you. The restaurant weren't going to give us food, and in some cases, they refused to give us gasoline. And if your car broke down, Gali, you're stuck. You're probably going to have to leave that car there. So, but then when you got up north, I tell people, I went to school in the first grade in Auburn, Indiana. We were the only Mexicanos going to Auburn, Indiana. I went to school in the third grade in Defiance, Ohio. We were like 2 or 3 families Mexicanos. And now you go back and, in Defiance, Ohio, like half of Defiance, Ohio is not Mexicanos, Chicanos. And my aunt, Mireles, were one of the first ones the first family that went to Defiance, Ohio. And now all over the norte, we have all these communities, and these are Chicanos, the people that stayed up there. And what is interesting to me is that when I was there last year for a reunion, is that all these people were originally from Texas, and now they're second and third generations that were born in Toledo, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, whatever, but they're so proud of Texas that they seem to keep la cultura, the música and everything, more than we do down here. And there's a lot of Chicano groups and organizations, what have you, in Lansing and all over the Northwest. And I'm interviewing all these successful people también, and then at the same time, I'm making also comparison with my family, because like I said, most of us that came back, and this is very common in a lot of the people that didn't stay up north, but that migrated and ended up, there's a few success stories, but then, like I tell, in my family, when I compared against my family that came back to Texas, 2 of my brothers ended up in prison because of the drugs. I don't make any, but the thing was, a lot had to do with because, there was no money to make money.
Bueno, carnal, I'll be leaving tomorrow.
Yeah, I know.
No te agüites, carnal. And I'll be back, man. I'll be back.
Yeah, one way or another.
Don't say that. I want you to keep this guitar. I want you to keep it.
No, hombre, yo no la sé ni tocar, esa es la jefe.
Está bueno. Mira, te voy a dar algo. Quiero que te quedes con esto. I want you to take care of it. That God's been very good to me. He's taking care of him.
What's the matter?
This was my brother's pistol.
Put it away, Hondo.
In a little while.
What if somebody sees it?
Don't worry, nobody will see it.
I'm worried, honey.
No te apures. This baby will take care of us. Isn't it pretty? Want to walk around the park?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you're a historian. You're somebody who was part of an important part of our history, and you made history, especially 40 years ago. I want to thank you for being with us, for sharing your experience with the generation here, and especially with the audience here in El Paso. And I wish you all the luck and the best in your new project. And you're enthusiastic about it, and just like the first film, you haven't been buried alive. You're still contributing to La Raza and to the rest of society.
Well, I thank you for this opportunity to do this. And lastly, I would just like to say, especially if there's any migrants that are related to, you have grandparents, parents, whatever, that would like to share stories or pictures, the easiest way to get in touch with me would probably be EfrainGutierrez.com.
And thank you for joining us in this very special interview with Efrain Gutierrez, the director, producer, writer, distributor for the first Chicano feature film. Please don't bury me alive. Por favor, no me entierres vivo. Thank you.
De nuestra nación.